Hi, I'm Father Wesley Evans from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Sherman, Texas, and this is the third in our video series on using the prayer book at home, a basic introduction to the Book of Common Prayer as a spiritual tool for you at home. We have so far seen sort of some basic tips on using the prayer book itself. And then in the last video, we talked about morning prayer. And so tonight's video is on evening prayer, how to use the tool of the prayer book to end the day. So go ahead and grab your prayer book and turn to page 61. Evening prayer, Rite 1 begins on page 61. Just like with morning prayer, I want to give an overview before we get into the details. And if you've not already done so, please go watch the other two videos before you begin. This one builds off the others a little bit, so I sort of assume that you've seen those when we begin this video. And with that in mind, let's talk about evening prayer. Now, evening prayer mirrors morning prayer, and so is divided into 7 similar parts. The 7 parts are the opening sentence, which gets our souls ready. It has less options than in morning prayer. Confession of sin to prepare ourselves for God's presence, the same as in morning prayer. An invitatory and psalter, which begins worship, which is a little bit different than in morning prayer, but it's similar in structure. Readings from Scripture with canticles, just like morning prayer, but with less options. In fact, you'll find overall, evening prayer has less options. It is more straightforward. The creed in which we confess our faith, the prayers, and finally a simple conclusion. Now, just like with morning prayer, we're going to skip some of the stuff in the book. We do this for these videos because it was designed to be used in the church for formal worship or in sort of a more communal, formal setting. And since you're doing this at home a little bit more casually, that's the purpose of the videos anyway, we're going to skip a few things and simplify some things for that reason. But by all means, after this, go read through the rubrics if you so desire. Now, let's get to each part. Well, evening prayer's opening sentence are a much shorter list, as seen here. So go ahead and just choose any one of them. Now, one tip here, remember how in the first video I mentioned you might want a pen to make notes? Well, this is a great place for that. This will be a place where you could mark each of these sentences for a day of the week, or for a season of the church year, or some kind of rotation, and you can just make those notes and go through them in some kind of cycle. This opening sentence, either way, is the transition for us into a time of prayer that mirrors what we did in the morning. Next is the confession of sin. Unlike morning prayer, this is probably much more important here. You probably didn't have a lot of sins to confess after you woke up, but towards the end of the day, you probably had something or 2 or 3 on your mind. So this is a great way to finish the day with confession and absolution. Now, like with morning prayer, we change the you to me or us, and we make the sign of the cross at the absolution, i.e. the part where God's forgiveness is declared. Now, the opening for evening prayer after the confession is a little bit different. For the evening, it is, O God, make speed to save us. O Lord, make haste to help us. It is traditional to make the sign of the cross over your lips when you say this. Evening prayer then moves into a shorter hymn. Remember, in the morning, we had Psalm 95, or the Venite. For evening, we have something called the Phos Hilaron, and this is an ancient Christian hymn and traditional for the evening. Unlike morning prayer, there's no antiphon here. So it is just the opening, then goes right into the Phos Hilaron, and then we have our psalm. Now, for the psalm, this verse functions just like morning prayer. It can be found in the same place in the lectionary. So turn to your bookmark or a book ribbon from morning prayer that you had over in the lectionary. And this week is Proper 16, and for evening prayer, we use the one on the right page here on page 981 in the lectionary. So it just, as I explained the last video, once you have the lectionary marked, you just go through as a cycle, and we have our evening prayer psalm. Now, at the end of the Psalms, it is traditional to say what we call the minor doxology, which you can find by turning back to evening prayer on page 64. Next to our scripture readings, like with morning prayer, we continue our Bible reading plan, and the canticles function just like in morning prayer. So go back to the lectionary, pick one or two of those readings, and then pray a canticle after each one. Now for evening prayer, only 2 canticles are actually listed. Both of them are from the Gospel of Luke. The first one is called the Magnificat, or the Song of Mary. It's Mary's praise to God after she was visited by the Archangel Gabriel. And the next one is called the Nunc Dimittis, or the Song of Simeon, which was a prophecy given to Mary at the temple when she was pregnant with Jesus. As both of these canticles come from the Gospels, it is traditional to make the sign of the cross when they are started. So scripture reading, Magnificat, scripture reading, Nunc Dimittis if you're doing 2 readings. Otherwise, scripture reading and then one, either the Magnificat or the Nunc Dimittis. Our Bible readings are then followed by the Confession of Faith with the Apostles' Creed on page 66. After the Creed are the prayers and intercessions, which are structured almost entirely the same as in the morning. They begin with the Lord's Prayer, and then after that there are suffrages. However, for evening prayer, the 2 suffrages are a little bit different. The first one, suffrage A, is the same as one of them for morning prayer. But the second one is not. It's different. Now, for personal prayer, I do not recommend using the second one. It definitely was designed for a group or communal setting. So if you're doing this at home, honestly, even if you're doing it with your family, I recommend using A, but you can use B if you'd like. A is simpler. A is similar to one in morning prayer. I recommend starting with suffrage A. So Lord's Prayer and then suffrage A. Next is the Collect of the Day, which, if you remember the video on morning prayer, you should have a bookmark or a book ribbon where that place would be. And so you can pray that next. And then a series of petitions and prayers, just like in the morning, although you'll notice they are often themed differently. Even the ones themed for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are different than the ones for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the morning. So just like in evening prayer, pray whichever ones you feel led to or think you ought to pray. Also then, insert your own personal prayers after these. Just like in morning prayer, there's a time for you to pray personally. And then the general thanksgiving. This is the same as in the morning. It's again, morning and evening prayer mirror each other in lots of ways, and this is one of those ways. And then that great thanksgiving is the final prayer. The conclusion is then also the same as in the morning. Let us bless the Lord, thanks be to God, and then the grace or one of the others that's listed in the prayer book that you will see. But either way, one of those final ends of Scripture. And like in morning prayer, this serves to wrap up our time with God and to conclude our day. And really, that's it. If you've been doing morning prayer for the past week after this video, then evening prayer is even more straightforward. It probably is usually easier to start with evening prayer than with morning prayer. Like morning prayer, there are some other options in it, but as you can see, it's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more straightforward. Many of those options are not in there in the text, and those options I will definitely cover in another video, but not now. So you have morning prayer down, you will have evening prayer down. Go ahead and practice those in a week. Let me know how those are going in the comments below, and then join us next Wednesday at 6:30 for noon and Compline prayer, and Compline happens right before bed. But we'll talk about those 2 forms of prayer, and those are the last ones in the daily office of the prayer book. After that, I'll do some more videos on some other little interesting basic parts of the Book of Common Prayer. So let me know in the comments below how your prayer life is going, particularly during this pandemic when I'm recording this. Whether morning and evening prayer are working for you, what parts are not working for you. Are there any parts that are still confusing? Are there any parts that are really meaningful? Let me know below. And if you enjoyed this video, if these videos of our online ministry has been impactful to you in some way, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Be sure to like this video and check us out on our website at ststephenssherman.org, and then also every 9:30 a.m. on Sundays for our live stream worship on Facebook Live. Thank you and God bless.